Hi, I'm now going to talk about Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the final book in the Harry Potter series, or so I thought at the time, because now of course we have Cursed Child. But this was the beginning of the end at the start of this book. So many amazing characters died, but in the end, good triumphed, and that for me was very important. But a lot had to happen along the way. Harry, of course, broke up with Ginny. He's to protect her. Ron has had to leave his family behind. Hermione's had to put a spell on her parents to forget her, and it's quite sad. And for me, in this one, there was no humour at all. But I like that because it reflected the atmosphere of it. And something I really liked is at the beginning of the film with 7 Part 1, you had the Warner Bros. I don't know whether anybody out there noticed it, but if you look, you'll see the paint, or the metal rather, is rusty, and you'll see it as it goes through the WB. You'll see it peel away, and I found that quite good. And then, of course, you arrive at Malfoy Manor, and then you see what happened, what has become of the Malfoys, how degraded they were. And for me, the way Voldemort had his people, it was a council of war, and you could see the hierarchy of the Death Eater ranks. Snape was, apart from one person, which I think was his field general, or the wizarding equivalent, was sat next to Voldemort, and he gave him his information. Yaxley, who's at the bottom of the table, which says a lot, pretty much near Thickneys. I always found that a funny name, Thickneys. Was sat almost at the bottom, and it's clear to see who Voldemort trusted most of all, which was obviously Snape. Because obviously, why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he? I know we see at the end he probably shouldn't have, but at that point, why wouldn't he? He's just killed the biggest threat to Voldemort, Dumbledore. And Order of the Phoenix, in Voldemort's eyes, is almost finished. He's almost won. He's just got to do one last push. And that, in the end, you see becoming almost his downfall. They go around, they destroy the Horcruxes. The die and the ring are already gone. They destroy they track down the locket, the cup, the diadem. Neville kills the snake, and then Harry sacrifices himself in a moment of great heroism for me. And when he says, and something I really loved on that topic was when Voldemort says, "Why do you continue to live?" And he says, "Because I have something worth living for." And to everyone else, it's like, "Oh, he has something to live for. He has friends and that." But it's not because of his friends. It's because of one person, Ginny. It's because Ginny was the reason he returned to fight again. If for instance she had been killed, he would have gone on, and someone else would have been left to kill Voldemort. But in the end, Harry came through, and I find something quite amusing. There is one piece of humour actually on that topic, when Lupin says Expelliarmus is in the past, and that is the spell that Harry uses and defeats Voldemort with. It's got him through so much, Expelliarmus, and like he said, he's not going to blast someone out of the way just because they're in his way. That was Voldemort's job. He disarmed Stan Shunpike because he was under the Imperious Curse, and Harry knew that because, like you said, Stan Shunpike was an idiot, plain and simple. He almost gave him away on the night bus. But it's quite funny, almost, but also not. And of course, you see Fred die, you see George have his ears cut off, we lose Mad Eye, Remus, Tonks, but we also see Percy Weasley redeem himself. He came back to join his family and to fight, and I find that quite good. And Dudley also redeemed himself. But for me, it was quite a sad book. And then you have the 19 years later, which was the opening. It was the end of the last book. What people thought was going to be the last book. But it was also the beginning of what I do believe to be the last book, but then again, we never know. There could be a in-between book, there could be something about, it could be called Albus Potter, for instance. It could be, we could have a book about the children's lives at Hogwarts, or we could see how they end up in, we see them in the middle of the life, perhaps we'll see what happens to them at the end of the life, we don't know. And we're introduced again to Amos Diggory, who's now old, and we also find out that Voldemort did in fact have a daughter, but it wasn't Malfoy's son, who was actually Malfoy's son, not Voldemort's. It was Delphi, who was Amos Diggory's niece, who actually was putting him under the Imperius curse. It was nothing to do with saving Cedric, nothing to do with any of that. All it was to do with was bringing her father back. She went back, and then, as you see, in the end, it just goes on. But that's actually next book, so I'm kind of going into that now. But Deathly Hallows was split for the films, of course, as you would all know, into two. Part 1 and 2. And also a very, very sad moment for all Potter heads, as they're called, was Dobby dying. And I'm not very ashamed to admit, I shed a tear when Dobby died. Who wouldn't? The adorable little character in his little boots, who went to save Harry. And unlike in the second book, where he had almost killed Harry saving it, there's quite a funny quote I didn't mention earlier. It was, so Harry says, "What, do you want to get me killed?" And he went, "Never kill, sir, just mortally injure or wound." And I found that quite amusing. And yet again, he came to save Harry at risk of his own self, and of course, it proved to be the undoing of him. Just for Bellatrix, of course, through her knife, it went through the portal in which they'd apparated, and it hit Dobby, which I gotta admit was probably a good shot on her part, or a lucky shot rather, but it was kind of sad, and I find it very, very, very deserving that Dobby got a grave. I would say that, but of course in the end it all comes clear, and my favourite line of the whole book is the end, "All was well," and that pretty much sums it up. So I've got one final book for you, and that's Cursed Child. So I'll see you in a sec.